Hey everybody, Sharon here from VidGamiac.com. Here we are today back in the Overwatch archives going for the Storm Raging achievement. This one's going to be available to do whenever the challenge missions are going to be available in the arcade. This one is going to be the other remix of Storm Rising, so make sure you pick that. For team build, I'm going to recommend you stick to our classic Storm Rising build. So we're going with Bastion, Orisa, Wrecking Ball, and Mercy. Make sure you get into the game. The gimmick with this one is it's going to be Storm Rising on expert difficulty. However, you're going to encounter these type of enemies who are going to be glowing red. These are going to be the enraged enemies. So the way enraged enemies are going to work is they're going to deal 50% more damage and they're going to have 50% damage resistance. If you kill an enraged enemy, any enemy near them is also going to become enraged. So you are going to want to try your best to take out all of the non-enraged enemies first and then work on the enraged enemies. Do keep in mind, it shouldn't be too difficult as this is going to be expert difficulty. All of the enraged enemies are basically going to be similar to what you would expect on legendary difficulty. So if you can beat this mission on legendary difficulty, this one should be pretty much the same. The first part's going to be super straightforward. You're going to make your way out of the garage. Orisa's going to want to take point and then pop her shield up, and then the three machine gun characters are going to pile behind the shield and then just gun everyone down from as far back as possible. Mercy is going to hang back behind everyone, and she's going to spend most of the time buffing the Bastion, and then she's also going to heal anyone who needs it whenever they do need it. Once you clear out the initial street, just make sure you have everyone move up. Make sure you move up to the point where you can spawn in the first special. It's going to either be an assassin or a sniper, so make sure you apply whatever strategy is appropriate for whatever special. If it's an assassin, everyone is going to want to pile up in a big batch. That way, once the assassin pounces someone, you can knock her off super duper quickly, and that should stun her, giving you a bunch of time to kill her. If it's a sniper, just make sure you try to shoot her from all the way back here, and you can use the corner for cover. And of course, you do have Orisa's shield to take advantage of. So this build is going to be super duper useful with the three heavy firers up front and the Mercy buffing and healing from behind.
Please move behind the back. Damage boost engaged. Damage output increased. We make a great team. Where does it hurt? You should be at peak performance level.
Sniper eliminated.
Don't let up on them. I'm opening the doors now.
Once you get those distillery doors open, we're going to make the push in on side. Make sure you try to watch out for both sides, as there are going to be enemies behind these pillars right here. So just do your best to clear out the floor the best you can. Obviously, you do want to keep the remix gimmick in mind, so make sure you do save any glowing enemies for last whenever you are engaging with multiple enemies, especially in these non-big open areas. So just make sure you try to take care of that. That way we aren't making the level more difficult on ourselves. Make sure you hold this corner right here, and then just take everyone out from the main floor as well as the little window. And then once you do your initial sweep of the distillery, we're going to hit up the back staircase and then head to our good old storage room hidey hole. So exact same strategy as we did for our normal Storm Rising run. We're going to have two people on the staircase, one person in the window. You want to make sure you have Wrecking Ball in the window and the other two people on the staircase. Orisa's going to pop up her shield to block the window, and then Mercy's going to take turns buffing whoever needs it. So just make sure you keep firing away and make sure you hold both of the two positions, as there's only one way in, one way up from here. Make sure the Orisa player is constantly refreshing the shield whenever she can, and then you should be able to hold the position A-okay. Make sure you keep up the firepower until you get the first specials to spawn. If you get an assassin, what you want to do is you want to make sure you have the Mercy player pull back to the back corner, as you don't want the assassin to target her, as she is going to kill the Mercy rather quickly. So you want to try to have the assassin pin one of the more tankier teammates, and then you have more time to deal with her. Thankfully, the advantage to this area is going to be its vantage point, as you are able to have a clear view of the factory floor, and you should be able to hit any sniper from any position. In fact, you might even get lucky and have the sniper spawn right in front of you, and that way you can just whack her from behind and then take her out before she can even jump. So a very useful spot up here, and we're just going to hold our positions until we get the first heavy to drop.
Great team. Barrier activated. You needed a Doctor. You should be at peak performance level. Where does it hurt? Enemy reinforcements incoming. Ich kümmere mich um dich. Assassin detected. Well done. Healing stream engaged. Let's get to that outfit. Assassin on me. For your safety, please be behind. I'm taking care of you. Please move behind the barrier. Ich kümmere mich um dich.
So once the first heavy drops in, you are definitely going to want to have the Wrecking Ball player have their ultimates ready. The Orisa and the Bastion are going to take positions up on the staircase. The Wrecking Ball is going to be in the window. Then what you want to do is want to make sure you have all three players try to land as much damage onto the heavy as he tries to make his way up the one and only staircase, which is going to be the only way in here. As soon as he gets up to the staircase, you're going to want to have everyone get up to the window. If Wrecking Ball has his ultimate ready, he's going to pop it by the top of the staircase. That way the heavy is going to trip the mines once he tries to chase us through. And then everyone's going to bail by jumping out of the window and then heading to the hallway on the left. Once everyone gets there, hopefully safely, you are going to want to pop two people over by the door you just came through, and then one person is going to go over here by the far door. Everyone is going to keep an eye out on the door for where the heavy is attacking, and then what you want to do is want to make sure you head outside the opposite door, and then everyone's going to book it to the overhanging office right here. Once everyone's over here, you're going to have another situation where there's only one real way in to the office, which is going to be the staircase. So everyone can take positions up on the window right here. Bastion's going to enter turret mode, and the Mercy is going to basically buff him the whole time as you lay into the heavy as he's making the long journey across the distillery floor. If you lose position in the office, you can also take advantage of this window in the hallway. But as soon as the heavy gets up the staircase into the office, everyone's going to make their way over into this hallway. More likely than not, the heavy should head into the office, and you can land some quick follow-up shots into the window across into the office to try and get him. Unfortunately, during this run, we had the heavy kind of get stuck in the middle of the factory floor, and the group got split up. If you ever find yourself in this scenario, you want to make sure you try to pull the heavy away from the other group, and then hopefully you can try to reestablish the loop as quick as possible. Now, if you are having trouble budging the heavy, you can also reuse the strategy we used during the Retribution run, which is to basically split the group up and then take turns pulling the heavy away from each other, and that way you just shoot him and then just lay into him from each side, and that way you can damage him from both sides equally. This shouldn't be too common of an occurrence because, again, it is going to be expert difficulty and you only have to deal with one heavy at a time. But if it does come up, just make sure you do take advantage of this alternate strategy. If you are running into trouble using this strategy, the Mercy player is going to come in handy right here, as if the heavy is going to be firing on the group that doesn't have the Mercy next to them, Mercy can use her ultimate to fly across the floor and then quickly pick up whoever is under heavy fire. So make sure you do take advantage of that if things start to get dicey with the pull strategy. So again, make sure you fall back onto the loop as best you can, but if the loop isn't working and you get a heavy in a really awkward spot, you can also take advantage of the pull strategy from the Retribution run. Now, when it comes to keeping the enragement off of the heavy, you are probably better off just trying to suck it up and then deal with the heavy that has enraged on it, simply because you are going to have to deal with the normal enemies eventually, and you are more likely than not are going to kill a normal enemy that has enraged on it, thus spreading the enragement to the heavy. So you definitely want to try to damage the heavy as best as you can before he gets enraged. That way, when he does inevitably get enraged, we can have an easier time of going about it. Once you finally take out the heavy, just make sure you mop up all the stragglers out on the floor, and then we're going to hit up the payload to start to push the truck, and then we're going to make sure we stick to our same old strategy, making sure we move the truck up slowly, and then making sure we get behind it once the enemies start to drop in.
I'm taking care of you.
Once you get the truck around the corner, the enemies are going to start coming in. Make sure you use the corner for cover. Bastion's going to take point on the truck in turret mode, and he's going to fire away. Arissa's going to throw up her shield right here to guard the street, and then once you get a ton of enemies, everyone's just going to back up, and they're going to hold this corner right here. So just same old of keeping the 3 machine gun people up front behind Arissa's shield and firing away. The drop ships should come in, so again, make sure you thin out the crowd. Prioritize the non-enraged enemies first, obviously. That way you have an easier time of dealing with the enraged guys once they are the only ones left on the board. And we're just going to keep holding our position right here in the corner. If we start to get overrun, you can always pull back to the factory, and then you have a nice bottleneck to work with the factory doors. But this should be pretty easy for the first wave, as long as you just make sure you hold your position A-okay. Keep that Orisa shield up, and then just keep the fire going. So once you finally manage to take care of that initial wave of enemies, we're going to push up and then try to get the first set of specials to spawn. They can either be assassins or snipers. In either scenario, just make sure you pull back. So for an assassin, everyone's going to want to try to pull back to the factory because you definitely want to deal with the assassins when it's just you versus her. If it's snipers, just make sure you pull back past the tower, as snipers cannot go past this point, and we're just going to deal with everything from as far back as we can. So just make sure you apply whatever strategy suits the scenario, and then we're just going to, again, hold the corner for the normal enemies. So make sure you just do that, and then again, just pull all the way back to the factory if completely necessary. That factory door should be more than enough of a bottleneck to get everyone through, and of course, Arissa's shield is going to be super duper useful here. Remember, the truck cannot take any damage since it doesn't have a health bar. You just have to move it. You don't have to defend it, which is going to make things way easier on us. So just try your best to hold the corner, and then just thin out the group, and then just slowly push back up whenever it's advantageous to, and then just take advantage of your defensive abilities. Then we're going to try to take out the specials. Again, try to pull the assassins all the way back, and then try to take out the snipers from really far away as they can't move up. And if they get stuck inside the castle, try to pull them out, and then you can shoot them from way back here. Once the coast is clear, we're going to move back up and then slowly inch the truck forward. Once you get across the bridge, we're going to have to do the same thing. Enemies are going to spawn from the castle, and we're just going to just pull them back. You can kind of hold this little corner right here of the bridge, thankfully, but again, if that fails, just keep pulling back. So the strategy of this is to just keep up the truck movement very slowly and then pull back whenever we need to, especially whenever dealing with a big group or with the specials.
I'm taking care of you. I could use some assistance. Don't stop now.
Alright, last movement of the truck into the castle. A bunch of enemies are going to drop in again into the castle. Make sure you don't stay in the castle, as this is going to be a big open area where snipers can kill us. So just make sure you pull back to the far side of the bridge and make sure you hold that corner. And again, if things start to get too dicey, you're going to want to pull back all the way to the distillery. So just make sure you hold this position, and we're just going to take out whatever we can. Make sure you, again, apply the appropriate strategy to whatever specials do spawn. The snipers are going to be a little hard to pull out of the castle. Just try your best, though. You definitely don't want to go into the castle, as they are going to mess you up. And just let the assassins come to you, and then just try to pull them back the best you can while staying as a group. So you should be able to hold this corner from all of the normal enemies, as the Orisa shield can pretty much cover the whole street right here. So just make sure you keep that up, keep the firepower up, and then make sure you just watch out for whatever specials appear. So if you get a sniper, make sure you try to get them outside of the castle or try to shoot them at a weird angle into the castle. And if you get an assassin, just make sure you bunch up and then deal with her the best you can. And then if you start to get overrun, just make sure you pull back. Now, once the heavy drops in, though, you definitely want to try to pull him back to the distillery, as we're going to use the same loop from earlier to try to loop him around and then take him out super easily that way.
Healing stream engaged. Let's get you back out there. Assassin detected. You needed a doctor? Don't let up on them.
All right, once the heavy finally drops in, you want to make sure you have the Orisa player take point. They're going to set up their shield right here in front of the factory gates. The Bastion and the Wrecking Ball player are going to pull back and then take up spots on the middle catwalk, and then the Mercy player is going to hang back as far as possible. You can have the Mercy player hang out in the storage room, and the Mercy player can actually have her buffing and healing reach the catwalk players. So make sure you just stand back and then just make sure you try to lay into the heavy from a safe distance. So the Orisa player is going to bait him into the distillery. Again, using that shield is going to be super duper useful. And then as he is making his way through those gates, the Wrecking Ball and the Bastion are going to further fire in on him. Once he finally breaches the distillery, everyone's just going to make their way into the storage room. So once he gets here, everyone's going to make a dash for that back staircase, and everyone's going to get into the storage room. Then you're going to want to have some players hold the staircase, so make sure you try to damage him as he gets to the staircase. Throw up the Orisa shield, and then everyone's going to lay in on him. 2 people on the staircase, 1 person in the window. Try to bait him into dashing, as if he does hit an obstacle, he's going to get stunned, which is going to buy you more time to hurt him. But once he starts climbing that staircase, everyone's going to want to make their way over to the window. If the Wrecking Ball player has their ultimate, he's going to throw it down to block the doorway. Same goes for the Orisa shield, and everyone's going to make their way back into this hallway. 2 people on the close side, 1 person on the far side. Keep an eye out for which direction he is picking, and then make sure you set the loop accordingly. So as soon as you establish the read on which door he's going for, just make sure you set the loop to head in that appropriate direction, and just make sure you make your journey into the overhang office right over here. So just make sure you make your way over there as safe as possible. You might have to adjust your loop a little slightly depending on how wonky the Heavy's AI is being, so you might have to reset the loop by heading back to the storage room or trying to cut across a different way. Team communication is going to be a must here, as everyone's going to need to be on the same page on how the loop is going, so make sure you do keep that in mind. But the basic fundamentals of the loop are going to stay true. Just make sure you take advantage of the 2 reset points, that being the storage room and the office. Making sure that once you get to this hallway, you're keeping an eye out on both sides and making sure you get a read on what direction the heavy's going, and then adjusting the loop on the fly that way. So as long as you are keeping the loop up, you should be able to just slowly chip him out as you are backing up to the next point and looking for those spots to land massive damage. Make sure you don't rush things, and make sure you are always staying vigilant on how the heavy's behavior is acting in the current loop, and that way you should be able to stay 1 step ahead of him at all times. So the best place to damage him, of course, is going to be the overhanging office. Everyone's going to take up spots in the window. Orisa's going to throw her shield down, Bastion's going to mount in turret mode and fire away. The Mercy player is going to buff the Bastion the best she can, and if the Orisa has her ultimate, she's going to throw it down to further amplify the Bastion. Do remember, if you are using the distillery to loop the end game heavy, you want to watch out for that door that opens up in this hallway right here. You don't want an enemy sneaking out through that. The regular enemies are going to give you a ton of trouble thanks to the remix gimmick, so try your best to keep them as thinned out as possible. So you are juggling more things here than you normally would, so be a little careful about that. Just make sure you stay safe and make sure everyone sticks together the best they can, and then you should be able to finally kill the heavy. Once he finally goes down, everyone's going to try their best to clear out the rest of the distillery of all of the stragglers, and then we're going to make the last push to arm the truck for the final explosion. So just make sure you make your last push up the road the best you can. Watch out for any stragglers who are still on the board, as they are going to give you a good spook if you aren't ready. So just make sure you be careful and don't get too reckless on this last push, but you should be able to make it now that the hard thing is out of the way. Arm that truck and then set it to explode. Once you blow up the gates, you should be good for your victory screen, the mission complete, and more importantly, the achievement that goes along with it. 15 gamer score for this one, and of course, that's all there is to it.